It started on a Thursday night, the kind of night that feels suspended between exhaustion and silence. The TV was still on, the lights dimmed, and Laura was in the shower. I was scrolling through some work emails, half asleep, when her phone buzzed on the counter beside me. A soft, innocent vibration, nothing unusual, then it buzzed again. And again, her phone never did that. She wasn't the type to text much after midnight that I didn't look at first. I told myself not to. But the screen lit up, and for a second, just a second, I saw the name. Nate. The fire emoji hit me like a slap that I stared at it until the message disappeared. My chest went cold, like all the air had been sucked out of the room. Nate, my best friend, the guy who'd helped me move into this very house, who'd stood next to me in a tux at my wedding, who'd been there the night my father died, that IT couldn't be him. Not Nate. But the phone buzzed again, and before I could stop myself, I opened the message. Can't stop thinking about last time. That was all it said. Simple. Stupid. But it might as well have been written in blood that I remember just standing there in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. The shower was still running upstairs. I could picture her, steam curling around her, humming some song she always sang when she thought I wasn't listening. I used to love that sound. Now it made me sick that I didn't confront her. I didn't storm upstairs. I didn't do anything. I just placed the phone back exactly where it was, grabbed my jacket, and walked outside. I sat in my car with the engine off, watching the condensation form on the windshield, trying to piece together every night, every look, every time Nate had been around lately. IT was always there, wasn't it? The little glances, the private jokes, the quiet tension I pretended not to notice. And just like that, the shape of my life shifted. Everything that had seemed solid felt suddenly paper thin. The next morning, I made coffee, kissed Laura on the cheek like nothing was wrong, and went to work. That's what you do when your world falls apart. You keep doing the small things, hoping they'll make sense again. Nate texted me around noon. You good for beers this weekend? I stared at the message for a long time. My thumb hovered over the keyboard before I finally replied. Yeah, man. Same place as always. He had no idea. And that's how it began. Not the betrayal, but the quiet, deliberate burn that came after it. Nate had started a small contracting business a few months earlier. Kitchens, bathrooms, that kind of thing. He was proud of it, told me all the time how he was finally making something real. I'd helped him with his business plan, reviewed his numbers, even talked to his bank about financing. He trusted me completely, his oldest friend, his financial guide. I used to admire that trust. Now it was just leverage. At first, I told myself I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to understand why. But you tell yourself a lot of things when you're trying not to drown in anger. And anger, if you hold it long enough, starts to look like clarity. So I watched him. I met up for drinks like nothing had happened. We laughed. We talked about work. Sometimes Laura joined, and they played their game, subtle, careful, as if I couldn't see right through them. I think what hurt most wasn't that they slept together. It was that they thought I was stupid enough to miss it. The idea came slowly. A seed that grew in silence. That I had access to Nate's accounts, his invoices, his bank contacts. I didn't need to forge anything. Just rearrange a few numbers, move a few decimal points, make a few anonymous calls. Little inconsistencies. Enough to make a bank think something was off. And the thing about financial systems? Once you plant doubt, it multiplies on its own. A month later, his business account was frozen pending review. His credit line suspended. His suppliers stopped taking his calls. He called me that night. Man, I don't get it, he said, voice tight. They're saying I missed payments, but I've got proof I didn't. Can you look into it for me? Of course, I said. Let me talk to a few people. Then I hung up, opened a beer, and sat on the back porch in silence. The crickets were loud that night. Too loud I thought I'd feel something. Relief, satisfaction, maybe even joy. But all I felt was a quiet emptiness, like I'd just pushed a domino that couldn't be stopped. A week later, he came by the house. I wasn't expecting it. Laura was in the kitchen. When he walked in, she froze. I saw it in her face. The panic, the guilt, the unspoken please don't say anything. Hey man, Nate said, forcing a smile. Got a minute? Sure, I said, nodding toward the porch. We sat outside, beers between us, pretending we were still the same guys who used to fix each other's cars and talk about baseball. He told me everything, about the audit, the frozen assets, the delays, the clients walking away. He looked scared, vulnerable. I don't know what's happening. he said, running his hands through his hair. Feels like someone's out to get me. I stared at him for a long moment. Yeah, I said softly. Weird world, huh? He laughed nervously. Yeah, weird world. I almost pitied him. Almost. Weeks passed. His business crumbled piece by piece. His truck got repossessed. His girlfriend left him. I heard through mutual friends that he was borrowing money, selling tools, trying to stay afloat. Laura and I barely spoke. She must have sensed something was off. Maybe she thought I knew. Maybe she didn't. But the distance between us grew, thick and heavy. We went through motions like actors in a bad play. Then one night, around 2 a.m, I woke up to her whispering in her sleep. She said his name. That was the moment I stopped pretending I wanted to forgive either of them. I called Nate the next day. Told him to meet me at Murphy's, our old bar from high school days. The one with sticky floors and neon signs that never worked. He showed up late, looking like hell, eyes red, shoulders slumped. Still, when he saw me, he smiled. Man, you won't believe this, he said. Now they're saying I falsified tax documents. I swear to God, I don't know what's happening. I sipped my beer, watching him struggle. Maybe you pissed off the wrong person, I said. He gave a short, broken laugh. Yeah, maybe. I let a silence stretch between us. The jukebox hummed somewhere behind me. Then I looked him straight in the eyes. You should have stayed away from Laura. It took a second for him to process it. His face went blank, then pale. Jesus, man, he whispered. How long have you known? Long enough. It wasn't supposed to. Don't. I cut him off. Don't say it was a mistake. Don't try to make it sound small. He nodded, tears welling up, mouth trembling like he wanted to say something that might fix it all. But there are no words for that. I stood up, dropped a 20 on the table, and walked out. He didn't follow me. A month later, he left town. Rumor was he went to Florida to stay with his cousin. His house got foreclosed. His name disappeared from the local business listings. Laura and I lasted another 3 months. We didn't fight. We just faded. One morning, she packed a few bags, kissed me on the cheek, and said she was going to stay with her sister. She never came back. The house was quiet after that. Too quiet that I'd sit on the porch some nights, beer in hand, listening to the hum of the neighborhood, sprinklers, dogs, distant laughter. Life going on for everyone else. Sometimes I'd think about Nate, about how we used to be. The nights we'd drive out past the city lights and talk about everything we were going to do. We thought the world was ours back then. We thought loyalty was something unbreakable. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Not what they did, but how easily something sacred can turn into something cruel. Last week, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a folded piece of paper and a photo. The paper said, "We all pay for what we do." Eventually, the photo was of me and Nate at my wedding. He was standing right beside me, hand on my shoulder, both of us laughing. For a long time, I just stared at it, unsure whether to smile or burn it. I still don't know who sent it. Maybe it was him. Maybe it was her. Maybe it doesn't matter, because revenge doesn't end when you win. It just keeps echoing, quietly, like a fire that never really goes out. And sometimes, late at night, when the air feels too still, I swear I can hear that echo, the sound of his laugh, that easy, unguarded laugh. And for a second, I almost miss him. Almost, but not quite. It had been 5 years since I last saw Nate. 5 years since the quiet collapse of his life, the slow disintegration of trust, the way everything we'd built together, our friendship, my faith in people, even my marriage, had been scorched. I had tried to move on. New routines, new apartment, new acquaintances. The edges of the past blurred, like a photograph left out in the sun. I told myself I didn't care, that I had nothing left to feel for him. But deep down, I knew that fire, the quiet, cold fire of betrayal and revenge, never really died. The first sign of trouble came in a casual text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. It's been too long." And my stomach knotted. My first thought, is this a prank? My second thought, why now? And the third, slower, heavier thought, maybe the fire isn't quiet anymore. That I arranged to meet him at the same bar we used to haunt. Murphy's hadn't changed much. Sticky floors, flickering neon, the faint smell of old beer and smoke. But the familiarity of it made my chest tighten. Some things you never forget. He walked in. Taller, thinner, sharper somehow. There was a new hardness in his eyes, a calculation I hadn't seen in the boy I used to know. And yet, it was still him. Nate, my best friend. My enemy. Hey, he said, voice low, cautious. Long time. 5 years, I replied. Short. Cold. I didn't move to shake his hand that he sat down, careful not to touch me. For a moment, we just watched each other across the table, two predators circling the same cage. I've changed, he said finally. You'll see. I didn't know how else to fix things before, but now I can. Fix things. I laughed, bitter. You destroyed everything, Nate. You don't get to fix it. You don't get a reset button. He nodded, almost accepting it. I know, and I don't want your forgiveness. I want understanding. Maybe a chance to make you see things differently. The truth is, I was curious. Despite everything, I had to know what he meant that he leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. I've been tracking you. Your life. Your work. Your little routines. I know what you like, who you trust. And I've learned a lot since last time. I'm not the same guy you crushed. The threat was there, wrapped in a veneer of casual speech. I could feel it prickling beneath my skin, like the subtle warning of static before a storm. What are you saying, Nate? I asked. I'm saying, he said, eyes hard, that the game isn't over. Not yet. And this time, I might be the one holding the fire. I didn't flinch. I sipped my drink slowly, letting the weight of his words settle. He had underestimated me before. He thought betrayal was a weapon he controlled. He had forgotten one simple fact I had learned from him. Every manipulation, every lie, every deceit, I'd memorized it like a playbook. So, I said, leaning forward, letting a slow smile stretch across my face, you want revenge. Against me? Not revenge, he corrected. Balance. Justice. Justice. I echoed, amusement curling in my chest. Funny word. I've been hearing it a lot lately. He paused, eyes narrowing. I didn't come here to fight. I came to warn you. Something's coming. Bigger than us. Bigger than our old grudges. And if we don't play smart, one of us ends up broken. For the first time in years, I felt fear. Not the petty fear of losing a business or a girl, but the cold, creeping fear of the unknown. Nate was clever, always had been. And now, after 5 years of quiet study and survival, he was smarter, sharper. What's coming? I asked, voice low. He smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. You'll see soon enough. But we can either fight it together or fall separately. The weeks that followed were like living in a shadowed version of my own life. Subtle threats, cryptic emails, small incidents at work. Nothing overt, just enough to unsettle me. Someone was testing boundaries, probing weaknesses, and Nate? He was always there. In my peripheral vision, a shadow I couldn't shake. Then the first incident happened. My office was broken into. Nothing stolen, just files moved, computers slightly altered. Subtle sabotage, calculated to scare, not to rob. I knew who it was immediately. Only one person could orchestrate something that precise. Nate. I realized then that our game had changed. I had learned to wield fire carefully before, but this time, the fire had a mind of its own. And it was dancing on a knife's edge, threatening to burn both of us. One night, I followed him. Not to confront, not to threaten, just to observe. He moved with purpose, like a man who had been planning every step for years. I trailed him to an abandoned warehouse outside the city, a place that reeked of secrecy and danger. Inside, I saw evidence of more than just personal vendetta. He'd been gathering intel, tracking others, manipulating situations. The scale of it was bigger than me. Bigger than anything we'd done in our small, petty feud years ago. And that's when I realized the terrifying truth. Nate hadn't just learned from me. He had evolved. He had become a strategist, a predator who didn't hesitate, who didn't fear consequences. That I understood in that moment that our past was no longer just a history of betrayal and revenge. It was a living, breathing thread, a dangerous dance we couldn't stop. That we met again in the same old bar. The air was thick with tension, history, and unsaid words. I underestimated you before, he admitted. But now, we're equals. I nodded, my throat tight. Or enemies. He leaned back, calm, deliberate. Maybe both. Depends on how we play the next move. And I knew, without a doubt, that the next move would decide everything. Who survives, who falls, and what the cost of our quiet fires truly was. Because the truth about revenge isn't just that it burns the other person. It's that it leaves scars on the one who holds it. And sometimes, years later, the past returns with its own rules. And Nate. Nate had learned every one of them. The tension had been building for weeks, almost like a storm I could feel deep in my bones. Every knock on my door, every phone call, every unfamiliar car on the street was a potential threat. Nate was everywhere and nowhere, a ghost moving through my life with the precision of a hunter. And I couldn't shake the fact that I was, somehow, the prey this time, that I had spent years controlling the fire, directing it, shaping it with careful precision. Now it burned too close to me. And yet, I couldn't stop. I wouldn't stop. IT started with the email. No sender, no signature. Just a few lines of text that made my pulse spike. Meet me where it all began. Midnight. Alone. In Murphy's. The bar where we had started and ended countless chapters of our lives. The smell of stale beer and fried grease hit me as soon as I pushed through the door. Empty except for the bartender cleaning glasses, the neon lights buzzing faintly overhead. Nate was there, leaning against the far wall, shadows playing across his sharp features. He didn't smile. He didn't even nod. He just waited, a predator confident in his trap. I approached slowly, hands in my pockets, mind racing. So, I said, trying to sound casual, you set this up for a showdown? He shrugged, calm, almost casual. Call it what you want. I just want to end this. End it. I echoed, bitter. You've been shadowing my life, sabotaging everything I touch, testing me. You call that an ending? Sometimes, he said softly, an ending isn't a finish line. It's a beginning of truth or ruin. Depends on what you're willing to pay. I realized then what he meant. He hadn't returned for revenge in the petty sense. He had returned to prove something, to force both of us to see the consequences of the fire we'd built over the years. And I couldn't back down. Not now. We walked outside together into the alley behind the bar, our steps echoing against the brick walls. The night was damp, the air heavy. For a moment, silence. Then he spoke. You think you've been clever, controlling everything. But the truth is, you've been predictable. I learned every trick you used against me, and I've been waiting for the right moment to show you how it feels. A cold sweat ran down my back. He was right. I had underestimated him. The subtle chaos, the probing, the manipulation, all leading up to this. The first move came from him. Small, deliberate. My phone buzzed. A photo message of my office in disarray, files scattered, drawers open. Nothing stolen, but enough to make it personal. He was inside my life again, and this time, I couldn't stop it. I knew then that the final act had begun. This wasn't about business. This wasn't about Laura. It was about control, dominance, the need to prove oneself in a game where the stakes were trust, loyalty, and sanity. I made my move too. Not recklessly, not emotionally. I had learned from years of planning, from years of fire. I traced his movements, intercepted his communications, fed misinformation back into his world. The dance had begun, a perfect mirrored reflection of what we had done to each other. Days turned into nights of careful positioning. Every action calculated, every word measured. Nate tested me, tried to provoke, tried to make me slip. And I almost did. Almost let anger take over. But I held it. Patience, precision, observation, then the final encounter. A warehouse on the edge of town, abandoned, shadows long and sharp. He was waiting. I could see him in the dim light, every muscle taut, eyes glinting. And for the first time in years, I saw a flicker of respect in them. No tricks, I said. No games this time. He nodded. Agreed. Just the truth. Finally, we circled each other, words light, but weighted with years of betrayal. Then, the reveal. He had discovered something I hadn't expected, a link between a financial deal I had overlooked and an old associate who could ruin everything I'd built if exposed. He could have used it to destroy me instantly. Instead, he offered me a choice. Walk away from the fire, he said, or let it consume you. I stared at him, understanding the stakes. For the first time, the game wasn't about proving superiority. It was about survival, about seeing if we could end this without annihilating each other completely. I made my choice. I stepped back, slowly, and nodded. I walk. We left the warehouse in silence, the tension still there, but diffused. In the weeks after, I realized that Nate's return had changed something fundamental in both of us. The fire hadn't died, but it had been tempered. The threat, the obsession, the need for control, all had shifted into something quieter, something I could live with. We never spoke about the past in detail again. Laura never came up. The betrayals were still there, unspoken, but their weight had changed. We were no longer enemies, exactly, or friends. Something in between, wary allies, bound by shared history and mutual understanding of the darkness inside us. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that final act. The warehouse, the choice, the tension thick enough to choke on. I remember Nate's eyes, the glint of danger and respect. And I know that fire never truly goes out. It only waits. But this time, I had survived it. The quiet fire burns differently now. Controlled, contained, a reminder of who I was, who I could become, and what it means to confront betrayal and revenge without letting it destroy the last pieces of yourself. And Nate, I see him from time to time, a shadow on the periphery of my life. Neither of us touches the past directly anymore. We just carry it, like a scar under the skin. A constant reminder that fire, once lit, shapes everything it touches, including the one holding it.